Here's a story of when I went to fat camp. So obviously you weren't allowed to have like sweets or anything at fat camp. When you got to fat camp, they would check your bags to make sure that you weren't like smuggling in like candy or chips or like whatever. They would also check your packages so no one could send you illegal fatty things. But if they did, they would know. At least that was the hope. But when I tell you that we were still chewing gum and eating candy all the time, we were. I don't remember how we did it. I was like 13 and so was everyone else. We were there for 2 months. But there were a few people who were pretty much like the dealers of the summer camp, and they would like, you would, I don't know, you give them something in return. They would give you like gum or candy. I was never this ballsy, but some of these kids were so good at chewing gum that they would do it in front of the camp counselors, and as soon as the camp counselors would look over to them, they would stop chewing. And if they ever got caught, they would just put the gum like right here in their mouth, and so they could be like, see, no gum. We had people chewing gum 24/7 and not getting caught for it, which was like crazy to me. Anyway, over the course of the 2 months, I had this huge candy stash in my ceiling, but I got found out part 2 soon. Getting caught with candy at fat camp, part 2. So we were in these dorms in fat camp, and I had these ceilings where it was like tiles. So I had this candy stash in my ceiling that no one knew about, not even my friends, not my roommate, no one. To get to the ceiling tile, you literally had to stand on the bed and push the ceiling tile up. I would only eat the candy in my room with the door closed. I wasn't like some of these other kids who were crazy and would do it in front of the counselor. So I had candy for months, for like 2 months worth of candy. People were only dealing candy, not chips, and I love chips. So one time me and my friends broke into the place where they kept the snacks for the snack machine, but that's a different story for a different time. And we didn't have access to the snack machine, by the way. It was locked. Also, the way you would get candy was literally like a drug deal. They would literally shake your hand and be like, hey, what's good? And then you'd have candy in your hand. My big mistake was that every single time I would get candy from the ceiling, flakes would fall onto my bed, and so it was like, there's something up there. So one day I went to go get candy from my ceiling, and it was all gone. A lot of candy was all gone. 2 months worth! And to this day, I still don't know who took it. I have no idea. How much I got this part of my beer? Here's a story from when I went to fat camp. So I love chips, and they never gave us good snacks at fat camp. They would give us these because they were fat-free. They are fat-free! And I never want to eat one ever again. So it was a summer camp for 2 months, and they had us on the school ground. In the gym, there was this room with a glass window where all the snacks for the vending machine were kept, taunting us. Me and my friends Cheyenne and Sam were like, let's break in. We were 13, seeing this every day at fat camp for 2 months. We're gonna break in. I mean, they're asking for it. We went to planning. The problem was there was this huge padlock guarding the door. One day during our free time, we grabbed one of Cheyenne's like hairpins and we tried to break in that. It's not as easy as they make it seem in the movies. It did not work. So we had to replan. So we grabbed a screwdriver because it was one of these doors and we unbolted the hinges. Unscrewed 4 screws in total, got some chips, and then screwed back the hinges into the wall. We didn't take that many chips because we didn't want anyone to know. We thought we'd just come back. Well, the next day, every single snack from that room was gone, and they were trying to figure out who broke in. But they never figured out it was us, so fat camp high successful. What color should I do this part? I went to fat camp, and y'all have questions. Duh, let's answer them. Did you ever date anybody or kiss anybody? My first kiss was at fat camp, and it was this girl named Kelly, and I was 12, but she was 14, so I would date older women. How was the food? So everything was pretty much fat-free or really low fat. We were only allowed 20 fat grams a day. We had to keep all the fat grams and calories that we ate that day in our food journal. Everything was regulated, and you had to check in with your camp counselor and therapist every week and show them your food journal. Yes, we had therapists. It kind of makes sense. Did you have beef with anyone? No pun intended, but there was so much beef at fat camp. The first weekers hated the second weekers. I don't know why, because new people would come to the camp every single week. There were cliques and fat shaming of all things. My friends had a lot of beef with this one girl because she was our best friend the first month, and then the second month she started hanging out with these like skinnier, cool kids and clicked up with them. What kind of food did they serve? So breakfast was like egg whites, grits, fruit, fat-free yogurt. When I tell y'all, their fruit bar was like literally bussin', it was the best. You could have as much fruit as you wanted. I ran out of time, more questions. Oh, here's how I found out I was going to fat camp. I just made a boom effect with my breath. So I was loving my grandma wanted to pay for my summer camp, but it had to be fat camp. But they had whitewater rafting. So my mom was like, he's 11, we're not sending him to fat camp. But they have whitewater rafting. So my mom asked me about it, and I was like, I'm 11, I'm not going to fat camp. But then I thought about the fact that they had whitewater rafting. So I went to fat camp because they had whitewater rafting.